I feel that that the community honestly doesn't know or realize just the financial position that this council has put our community in. It's really, as I campaign now, I do find that people are somewhat aware, but they aren't really aware of all of the implications of a couple of the major obligations that the council has taken on. One of them, and one that's relatively easy to understand, is the new water line. That is going to cost this community over $75 million before it's finally paid for. And if you listen to the city, they'll tell you that that water line is paying for itself, which is totally untrue. That water line doesn't pay 1 cent for itself. Every bit of water that's coming into the community now could come through the existing water line service before the new water line was built. So until we have a need for that water line, and maybe we will and maybe we won't, we are going to be obligated with paying the indebtedness. And as I say, that total indebtedness will be over $75 million. The other large issue, which I think is a little harder to understand, is the new city golf course. When I was on the council, I opposed both of these, but with no success. The city was never willing to look at the golf course as in a realistic light. They've always had it as a pie in the sky type of a deal where they assumed that a golf course would make money. And this, I think, is where the community is going to be very adversely impacted. It's kind of interesting. I had at the last council meeting, Dick Bravo got up and asked some very probing questions, I thought, about the golf course and particularly the installment loan that the city was now proposing. Like many of the times on the council, when a person gets up to ask a question, his questions were not answered. They totally avoided them. So I took it upon myself. I sent a fax to the city manager on Thursday, and I did get an answer back. What I had asked the city manager, and basically, was that now that we have the additional $3.2 million indebtedness on the golf course, if that in fact didn't increase the indebtedness to 21.7, obviously it does. And I also asked him that it was obvious to me that when they did the Hobbs report last July, there wouldn't have been any way for them to have known that they were going to have to go out for another $3.2 million. So shouldn't then the obligation of the paying back of that $3.2 million be added to the deficit that the city is going to incur over the next at least 5 years? Well, they didn't answer it directly, but they did answer it sort of indirectly. And some of the things that they mentioned here, which I think need to be pointed out, and to show really that either they don't understand or they're not being honest with the community. They're saying that this particular installment loan has no impact there is no obligation or intent to pay it from the city's general fund. Well, if you look at the resolution itself, there's a very specific spot in it, and it says that these shall be paid from any legal funds available to the city, including, without limitation, monies available in the city's general fund. So that's pretty specific as far as I can see. And how they can say that it's not, I don't know, but in fact, it's their own document that says that it is. On top of that, all of the costs incurred at the golf course are the city's obligation. And if there comes a time when the funds that the golf course develops itself are not sufficient to cover the costs of operating the golf course, they have the obligation of paying. In other words, the tenant or the leasee will send the city a bill and say, okay, we don't have enough money now. We need this much to pay our bills. And I think it's quite interesting to look at just what those bills might be. They're indicating that they have now the three debts of obligation. One is the bonds, One is the utility fund loan, and of course now the third is the installment loan. On top of that, they have an annual management fee that goes to the company that's managing the golf course of $650,000. Now this goes on day after day, no matter what. And if you add those items together, there is a yearly obligation that won't change of $2,989, $2,984,000 that is the obligation of, they say the golf course, but in essence the obligation of the city. Now if you divide that by 365, that means that every day when they open the door at the golf course, they have a nut to crack of $8,177. Now this is just the cost of retiring the loan and the management fee. Doesn't include any of the operational costs of the golf course itself. Doesn't include the water, doesn't include the employees, doesn't include any of these things. I think it's so obvious from talking to people that know golf courses that there is absolutely no way that this golf course can ever turn a profit. And it's very, very likely that it will show a loss. And this will be a definite impact on our general fund, as will the water line. So my thinking is that as we look at the future of the city, we can't look at the golf course as being a source of income. Now, in their letter again, they say that they have not used any projected income from the golf course in their next 5-year projection, neither the city nor Hobbs. Again, that's not correct. If you look at the Hobbs report, they have a line item that is profit from the golf course. And over the next 5 years, they project a profit from the golf course of over $1 million. So if the city hasn't calculated this into their forecast, then we're again at least another $1 million further in the hole than the city is willing to admit. So my thinking is that at this point in time, we have to be very vigilant and very aware that we're not going to get correct information from the city. There's no question that we have some very, very serious problems to solve. I have no idea how those problems are going to be solved. I have really no idea what our deficit position really is. I think it's much worse than we're led to believe. But I will tell you this, that if I am elected mayor, the city will have and the community will have correct information from the council and from the staff.